Hey guys, welcome to yet in another within our series, in our weekly CyberJA article reviews. And for sure, CyberJA is one of those platforms, those environments in which we are able to evaluate and to look at those various articles and documents in relation to cybersecurity and GRC. And one of the things is that as cybersecurity professionals within the industry, we definitely want to be able to help the organizations and the persons that we work with from time to time to make those informed decisions as it relations to implementing the various cybersecurity controls, the various cybersecurity measures within these organizations. So from time to time, we look at those various articles within the industry that can definitely give us that edge, that momentum that organizations need to um, better empower their team and their capabilities, right? So, guys, for sure, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time out to be with us. And as usual, feel free to ask questions, to share your input as we seek to evaluate and to look at those various documentations that are presented from time to time within the industry. So let us quickly look at what we have in store for our discussion today. All right, so let me quickly bring this article. All right, so there we have it, guys. So the article that we have looking at today is the 2022 official cybercrime report, a very important document. And this is one of the things that we want to do as professionals within the industry, that we need to be ahead of the game. We need to spend time to assess, to look at the reports, the documentation, what is really happening within the industry. And this is one of the challenges that we have as professionals in the industry, is to keep abreast of what is actually happening. So taking that time to assess the various reports, to analyze the happenings that are happening within the environment is very important as professionals, despite the difficulties or the challenges that are associated with this industry. All right. So this report in of itself for sure is something that you will want to take that time to look into. And I just will be looking at some of those highlights from this document itself. So I strongly advise, I will also place a link that you can actually look at this report. And there are a number of reports as it relates to what's happening within the cybersecurity industry. So it's always good to be abreast of these happenings, regardless of your role in cybersecurity. Having a holistic approach to the things that you do within an organization is very important as a cybersecurity professional, regardless of your role, whether it is you are looking at threat hunting, whether you're a pen tester, whether you're looking at risk management. Having a holistic approach as to what is happening definitely helps you to add more value to the task at hand within the organization. So from this article itself, there are a number of insights that actually um, come to mind when we actually look further into the article itself. So let me quickly so one of the things that actually jumps from this article is the fact that cyber savvy boards are discussing topics like cyber risk appetite, cyber risk tolerance, cyber risk quantification, and the risk-based approach to cybersecurity with increasing frequency. Those are the key things that are being mentioned among cybersecurity professionals. And according to this report, the global annual cost of cybercrime is predicted to reach 8 trillion USD in 2023. And compounding this is a rising cost of damages resulting from cybercrime, which is expected to reach 10.5 trillion by 2025. So this is quite alarming in terms of the impact of cybercrime. And obviously, this has become a business for many, I mean, groups within the industry. And we can all attest to what is happening within cyberspace, right? So let me quickly also bring to your attention that one of the things that comes from this report is the fact that organizations, they need to be moving into what we call adapt a risk-based approach to cybersecurity. So to your overall cybersecurity strategy, then a risk-based approach is now requested more than ever before, which simply brings to the mind that if we are now required as cybersecurity leaders to be implementing and enforcing a risk-based approach to cybersecurity, it simply means that there is already an approach within the industry that is being practiced. And for sure, the opposite of a risk-based approach is a compliance-based approach. So we're going to be working through this document so that at the end of this, then we are able to be in a better position. So when you think about or looking at it, the big question that we have here is why is it that organizations should adapt a risk-based approach to cybersecurity strategy for a more productive or proactive defense against modern cyber threats like ransomware, crypto crime, and social engineering tactics? That's the question that we have that is coming from the article itself. That's one of the main things that is being enforced from the article, right? So the article in of itself looks further into the fact that the report highlights the latest trends and statistics on cybercrime, including the tactics and techniques used by cybercriminals and the industries most targeted by attacks. And one of the key findings of the report is the continued growth of ransomware attacks, with a 71% increase in the number of attacks observed in 2021 compared to the previous year. And the report also notes a rise in the use of supply chain attacks, which target third-party vendors and service providers to gain access to a target organizations and systems. So what we're going to be doing is pretty much just working through these scenarios in terms of why it is that we should adapt this risk-based approach. So obviously there are some benefits to adapting a risk-based approach. And there's also challenges to adapting this approach. And there's also a particular method that is involved in also applying a risk-based approach, as well as there are a number of frameworks that you can adapt to implementing this risk-based approach within your environment. All right, so when you look, for sure, let us look at, well, the first thing that we want to look at is what is a risk-based approach versus a compliance approach to cybersecurity, right? So let us see this as a moment of pretty much just laying a foundation, and especially for persons who are new to the industry, persons who are trying to learn and to build your skill set, right? We always try to lay that foundation for everything that we do, regardless of your capabilities or the level at which you find. We always want to use this as a teachable moment whereby we can actually gain some insights from all of these discussions so that you can better assist your organization in terms of their security measures and practices within their environment. So the article requests and is pushing towards a risk-based approach versus the compliance-based approach in light of all that is happening within cybersecurity. So when you talk about having that risk-based approach to cybersecurity, right? When we talk about having that risk-based approach, now a risk-based approach to cybersecurity is, or we can actually look at that as a method that prioritizes an organization's security efforts based on its unique risk profile. That's the key word, the risk profile. And this is something that an organization has to establish at an executive level in terms of the risk profile of the organization, right? So as a security professional leader, whether you're a CISO, then your job is to find those risks, and then the executives, the powers that be, then determine the risk profile of the organization. Now, the approach, this risk-based approach, right, involves a number of steps, and we're going to be looking at all of those steps that can be applied in this risk-based approach. And when we think about the compliance-based approach, which is the opposite, right? A compliance-based approach focuses on meeting regulatory or industry standards without necessarily considering the specific risk and threats faced by an organization. So those are the differences between these two approaches, right? So in a compliance-based approach, then an organization might implement security controls based solely on meeting the requirements of a particular regulation or standard without considering whether those controls are most effective or relevant for their unique risk profile. And this approach can also lead to a false sense of security and leave an organization vulnerable to emerging threats or attacks that are not specifically addressed by compliance requirements. So those are some of the key things there that we want to definitely understand as we look into the document, right? Now, a number of other findings coming from this document is that the fact that there is no end to cyber risk. So the executive or board level conversations must shift to how we are actively improving cyber resilience, right? Or we are improving cyber resilience within the organization. And as we go further into the document, then it further highlights a number of factors, the cybercrime impact as well as cybercrime damages, right? So from here, this, according to this, cybercrime is impacting business of all sizes. So no organization is exempt from the impacts of cybercrime. And as a result of this, then we have to put all the necessary measures in place to ensure that our organizations are able to operate effectively and efficiently in regards to the various impacts of cybersecurity. But with that said, we just want to focus on, let us get this out of the way. Um, right? What are what are the challenges to a risk-based approach to cybersecurity resilient within the InfoSec community? What are these challenges that are being faced to applying a risk-based approach to cybersecurity, right? So this in of itself, moving from a compliance to a risk-based, definitely has its own challenges, right? So let us quickly look at some of these challenges as it relates to this risk-based approach to cybersecurity. So while a risk-based approach to cybersecurity can provide, for many of us, we know that this can definitely have a number of benefits, right? Significant benefits. There are also several challenges that organizations may face when implementing this type of approach. And some of those challenges include things such as difficulty in identifying and assessing the risk, right? So identifying and assessing risk to information assets can be a very complex process. And this obviously requires a deep understanding of the organization's business processes. This is very important. Understanding how it is that each element in the organization um, works along with each other is very important, right? The business processes, the systems and data, and this can be especially challenging for organizations with large, complex IT environments. Second challenge is the lack of visibility and controls, right? Very important. And many time we hear various conversation as it relates to this, maintaining that visibility and control over all aspects of an organization's IT environment can be difficult, particularly in the case of third-party vendors or cloud-based services that may be outside of the organization's direct control, right? Resource constraints, very important. Resource constraints. I mean, implementing a risk-based approach to cybersecurity can require significant time. We're talking about effort, the resources, including the necessary persons with the skill set, the technologies that are involved, also along with training. Small organizations may face particular challenges in this regard, right? So we're continuously looking at those challenges to this risk-based approach. The lack of organizational buy-in, and this continues to be a challenge. So successfully implementing a risk-based approach to cybersecurity requires buy-in from all levels of the organization, which includes senior management, senior leadership, the business units, um, the IT team, the various teams within the organization. And without this buy-in, this can be difficult to secure the necessary resources and support to implement effective risk management strategies, right? Not to mention the rapidly evolving threat landscape. And the threat landscape is constantly changing with the various threats and attack techniques emerging at all times within the industry, right? And this can make it very challenging to keep up with the latest threats and vulnerabilities and adapting to the security measures accordingly, right? So overcoming these various challenges can definitely be overwhelming, right? So necessary steps have to be taken in terms of investing in the various cybersecurity tools and technologies where it is required. Now, the next big thing that we have is what are some of what are some risk-based information security frameworks that can be used to in the process of adapting a risk-based approach to our cybersecurity measures, right? There are a number of risk-based information or cybersecurity frameworks that are well established within the industry that can also be used. And when we talk about these frameworks, we're talking about um, a number of frameworks such as the NIST cybersecurity framework, right? We have the ISO 27001, the CIS controls. We have FAIR, which is the factor analysis of information security risk. And also we have Octave, the operationally critical threat assessment and vulnerability evaluation, right? So having said all of this, then the next thing that you definitely want to look at is are what are the steps that are involved in implementing this risk-based approach, right? The steps that are involved in applying a risk-based approach, right? Which is very important. So let me quickly add these to our screen. All right. So one of the first things as it relates to the steps that are involved is that you want to, first of all, all right. So from our screen, one of our very first thing is that you want to identify, right? And this involves identifying all the assets that need to be protected, including your hardware, software, data, and networks within the organization, right? And secondly, this is followed by assess, right? So we want to assess, right? And this involves assessing the potential risk associated with each asset, including the likelihood and impact of various types of threats within the organization. Thirdly, right, you want to analyze, right? So analyze involves analyzing the results of the risk assessment to identify the most critical risks to the organization. And once that is achieved, then the fourth thing is to prioritize, right? So you want to prioritize, and this involves prioritizing the security measures based on the level of risk identified in the analysis. And once that is achieved, then we implement, right? So identify, assess, analyze, prioritize, implement. And implement involves implementing the security measures identified in the prioritization process. Last and very important is, right? And very importantly, guys, is the fact that I always like to keep things very simple to the basis, right? Very simple. So adapting a risk-based approach, the steps involve identify, analyze, assess, analyze, prioritize, implement, then monitor. And this is very important, right? So this involves continuously monitoring the security measures and in reassessing the risk to ensure that the organization's security posture remains effective, right? So if we quickly look back at our article, right? The main focus of this article is the 2022 official cyber report. And one of the main things coming out of this report is the need to move to a risk-based approach to cyber security, right? Adapting that risk-based approach to cyber security. And we have actually looked at the various steps that are involved in adapting this risk-based approach. They identify, assess, analyze, prioritize, implement, and also monitor the overall process as we go along. Now, if we look back at the document, right, this document itself, the report itself further highlights the importance of looking at the various states of cybersecurity, right? That's very important. Coming out of this report is that cybercrime represents the greatest transfer of economic wealth in history, right? Risk the incentives for innovation and investments is exponentially larger than the damage inflicted from natural disasters in a year, and will be more profitable than the global trade of all major legal drugs combined. So this report is very important, right? Now, cybercrime is impacting businesses, and any business that wants to ensure its uptime definitely needs to ensure its reputation, to ensure the safety of its employee and customer data, as a responsibility to invest in cybersecurity and put themselves ahead of this disruption. So that's the key thing about taking this risk-based approach, being proactive rather than reactive, right? And it also says that more than half of all cyber attacks are committed against small to mid-sized businesses. Those are the SMBs, and 60% of them go out of business within 6 months of falling victim to a data breach or hack. So for sure, board members, C-suite executives, CIOs, CISOs, and security leaders and organizations of all sizes are encouraged to spend time to go through these reports, right? To look at the various impact of cybercrime, the growth of ransomware, right? The monitoring your attack surface, looking at the industries that are affected the most by cyber risk, right? So that you can definitely take the various approaches, in this case, a risk-based approach in helping your organization to becoming more resilient in its fight against the various cybersecurity challenges that exist within the industry, right? And this is something that is an ongoing process for many of us as cybersecurity professionals. So from time to time, then these are the reports that we want to keep abreast with, so that in edge to help the executives in the organization to be aware of what is happening, so that they can definitely give you that support that is required to implement the necessary controls within these organizations to make them more efficient and resilient to the various cyber attacks and challenges that exist within the industry. So, guys, there you have it in yet another article review on the CyberJA channel. So, see you next week's review.